Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I first want to start off by just saying thank you. I've been getting a lot of messages and comments about my last video, and I do appreciate it all. Everyone has probably gone through something similar, and I just wanted to sort of share what I'm going through, just to, in case there's someone out there that's feeling the same thing, they're not going through it alone. But I'm trying to find my sparkle again, so to speak. But while I'm trying to find that, we're gonna just talk about another book, because at the end of the day, I love reading. All I really want to do these days is read, so I think it's quite fitting that we just talk about a book today. The book we're going to talk about is, I read it last year, and it's not for everyone. I'll put it that way, but I did quite enjoy it. It is My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I read this last year. I heard a lot of good things about it and I wanted to read it myself. It's more of a contemporary book. And what I mean by it's not really for everyone, it is quite sad. It's a little bit depressing. The whole time I was reading it, I was just kind of like, oh, that's not good. That's not happy. But I do think, part of the human condition is sadness and depression and depressing things. And I think this really did encapsulate that, aspect of the human condition. And that's why I loved it so much. Something about this book is they're really long chapters, but there's only like 8 chapters, but they're all really long. So I think probably one of the hardest things for me is sort of trying to get through those really long chapters. I'm not really used to reading chapters for a really long period, and in the chapters, it's a lot of background information. The whole point of this book is the main character just wants to relax, essentially, so she'll spend, she's spending this entire year trying to figure out how to sleep for as long as she can. And it sort of, you get an idea of this, of how the main character is sort of feeling, mental health wise. It's very obvious that she's struggling with something, and I think we've all been there. I should be happy, shouldn't I? That's sort of the whole point of this main character. And so she finds this really sketchy doctor to prescribe her sleeping medication, and then she'll just take a bunch of sleeping medication and she'll quite literally be asleep for weeks on end. And she pays people to look after some of her things, and she sort of is checked out of reality. I will say, while she's trying to do that, she's not really the best of friend. She's not really being a good friend to the friends described in the book, because she's just kind of really focused on just trying to sleep for as long as possible for a whole year. She basically sells everything in her home so she can pay for meds, and she's unemployed, and she just she allows this artist to be in the space, record her, draw her while she's sleeping for an art project, and in exchange he'll take out the trash, check the mail, housekeeping stuff, which I think is a little bit humorous at times. This book, while it is pretty depressing, it can be quite humorous. And another thing that I do want to point out, and that I do actually really like, is the main character is never named. You get a lot of background of her childhood, her growing up, her early years, her college life, a lot of background information, but you never actually get a name. And I think, I'm not quite sure why the author decided not to name the main character. I definitely don't think it's necessary, and I will say, when I started reading this book and I started to figure out, okay, so the main character doesn't really have a name, at first I did think like that was odd. That was really odd, you have to have a name for a main character, but after reading this book, I sort of realized that you don't really need to, the author really, she wrote, this person has a personality, this person does have a life, you just don't know her name, and this whole book is through her point of view, so you get to see what her thoughts and feelings are. She's sort of telling the story of her upbringing, her childhood, and you really get to know this person, but she just doesn't have a name. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there might be a lot of theories out there as to why she doesn't really have a name. Personally, the reason why I think she doesn't is because, this character is relatable. I mean, to a point. I don't think she's relatable in the way in which we all just sort of take a year off from living and working to try and sleep. I don't think that's necessarily relatable. That's quite extreme in my opinion, but we've all sort of had the same thoughts as what this character is thinking and feeling throughout this entire book. We've all shared those same thoughts and feelings, and we've all have had to deal with the shitty end of the stick and have a shitty hand of cards. We've all been there, and I think without really putting a name to it, we can really put ourselves in that position, or at least that's what I think it is. That's what I felt while I was reading this. I really did feel like I was putting myself in her shoes and thinking about it, as if she were actually me. And I think that's what I love about this book at the end of the day. Yes, it's very depressing. Yes, the chapters are unusually long. But the author does a really good job of sort of, painting this picture, but also transporting you into the shoes of this person and truly thinking, this is me, this is how I feel, this is me, this is relatable. Her thoughts, her feelings, they're all very much relatable. And yeah, I mean, that's, I think, what I really like about this book. And not to always go back to the human condition, but this is just so blatantly human condition. It doesn't have that much of a happy ending. I don't know, it's kind of a mixed set of emotions in the end, because after her whole year of trying to relax, she snaps out of it. She's like, you know what, I'm ready to be back in society. She thrifts all of her furniture, which, good on her, environmentally friendly. And you see her sort of turning her life around, but then something tragic happens. I'm not gonna spoil anything, and it's kind of sad. You're kind of left being there's not a happy ending. And I think those are my favorite books of all, is the ones that don't really have a happy ending, because that's not really reflective on life sometimes. The boy doesn't always get the girl, things don't always go the way we plan, and that's, it's always nice reading books where there is a happy ending, because it's always a serotonin boost. But I really like the ones that are truly realistic. Nothing goes the way that we expect or that we plan, and it might feel horrible in the moment, but eventually it'll get better. And I think showing a mixed range of emotions and feelings truly does encapsulate a person, a human. We're not always happy all the time. We think sad thoughts, and we are sad sometimes, and that's not always reflected in movies or TV shows or even books, and when it is reflected, it's refreshing almost. Like, reading this, I sort of felt like it was a breath of fresh air for me, because it was just something that at the time was not really what I was reading. Now I can say that I read a lot of books like this now, but when I first picked this up, I was very much into like the whole into fantasy, and I love fantasy still, but I was very much like, I picked this up after reading like a fantasy novel series, and I was like, what? So drastically different. The vibe shift happened very quickly, I will say that. But yeah, I don't know, I think there are really beautiful, sad things out there, and this is one of them. If I had to categorize beautifully sad books, this would be one of them. And you know, I highly recommend that, you know, everyone should read this book. I do, even though the main character is a female. I don't really care. I think we should all read this book, or a version of this kind of genre, this kind of book, this kind of vibe, because it's just, you're just sort of, how do I find the words? It's eye-opening at times, it's shocking at times, it's kind of depressing at times, but after reading it, you kind of have a different perspective on life, which I think is the whole point of books and literature, is to really be able to sit and think, okay, what did I just read? It is so important to have those kinds of feelings and those thoughts after reading a book. It's like, they're really, I think, important to just have, or else the author didn't really do a good job of telling a story, did they? You know? And, you know, I think books and literature are really supposed to question and challenge our way of thinking and our perspective on life. And, you know, if they don't, like, sometimes they don't need to do that. Sometimes it's just for fun, but I mean, and other times I think that's the point. And if, you know, you finish reading a book like My Year of Rest and Relaxation and don't really sit there like in shock or in awe of what you just read, then the author clearly didn't do a good job of trying to tell this story and portray this feeling. And I think, you know, everyone should read at least some sort of book that sort of shapes their way of thinking or offers a new perspective on life, because, you know, the whole point of living is to grow. If you're not growing in life, then what are you doing? And I think this book, to me personally, in my opinion, really has helped me grow into the person that I am today. And I like to think I still have way more growing to do, but I think it's just beautiful when a book can do that to you. So yeah, that was, sorry, you're covering up my light. Dude, get out of the way. You're blocking my light. Oh. And you're just gonna sit there. Okay. Lovely. More videos are coming soon, I promise. I'm really trying to get back into the groove of things, find my sparkle again. So bear with me, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon.